So I put together some action footage of the Monoshock conversion I did on this Honda Goldwing, and believe it or not, it works. And if you've been watching the channel, you know that I am the one that designed and fabricated this suspension, and I am the first person to be shocked that it actually does work. Now this is called a linkage style suspension because it has this extra linkage in here as opposed to having the shock directly connected to the swing arm back here. Now a linkage style suspension can give you two advantages when you're designing it. It can allow you to design in the amount of wheel travel in the back here, as well as to adjust the amount of forces going from the wheel back here up through the spring and into the bike. Now I spent a few days on the math on this because I thought it would be important to limit the wheel travel on the back of the bike, because this is a shaft driven motorcycle here and it has a joint right here, and I wanted to make sure that joint wasn't moving more than it was supposed to or what it was designed to move and prematurely wear it out. It's already an old bike to begin with. I'd like to be able to ride it myself for a few years, you know? Another and perhaps simpler option would have been to triangulate the entire rear swing arm back here. Basically have a triangle that comes up from here and goes all the way back to the axle, this axle back here. What that would do would basically directly transfer the forces from the axle up that triangle towards the shock here. And doing it this way would eliminate the linkage altogether, and you'd have the shock attached to the bike and then the shock attached directly to the little triangle. And basically I do have a triangle right here. It's just the math involved for moving the triangle from here up to here is a little bit different is all. Now I chose to go with the linkage style suspension because basically I was in love with the complexity and the challenge of making and designing it. I do think it allows more control over the wheel travel, and I think that is important on, at least on this axle driven bike. I think that's an important aspect. I would also like to say that it allowed the opportunity to have a lower profile swing arm here, but that's a highly debatable perspective. If you'd like more detail on how I made this, I'm going to have links in the description of this video to the other videos on which I discuss this stuff in more detail. So I'm happy to say that the suspension works brilliantly. It absorbs bumps in the road and smooths everything out for a very comfortable ride.